Should I go now?
Yeah, we just want to welcome everybody to GVEST and how you are on. So go for it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hal Simpson. I am with Georgia Blind Sports. I discovered blind sports about 20 years ago when my then 10-year-old son decided he wanted to play goal ball. At the time, there was no goal ball program in the city of Atlanta, and with collaboration between Annie Maxwell at CVI, City of Atlanta, Blaze Sports, and some other individuals, we put together a program and started a goal ball program. From that, 10 years later, we created Georgia Blind Sports, and for the last 10 years, I have been the executive director and pretty much the person in charge. We at Georgia Blind Sports have a number of programs going. We have our Go Ball program, which is now 20 years old. It's a combination of youth and adults. The youth program runs in the fall. The adult programs typically run January through mid-June. In addition, we have beat baseball, tandem biking, kayaking, golf, and audio darts. And we're looking at several others that we hope to add in the near future. What do we need from you guys? The most important thing we need, and obviously, is people that want to participate, people that want to either get involved with a team sport or just want to get involved recreationally. And you are our resource. You are the ones that can put us in touch with kids that want to learn a sport, kids that their families want to get out and do something with them. We can put them on a bike, we can get them in a kayak, we can teach them to play goal ball. And hopefully sometime in the near future, we can teach them to play five-a-side soccer. I want to tell you a quick story about a young man that I met several years ago. His name is Josh. At the time, he was 16, and we decided to put together a youth demonstration for goal ball. And he came, never played, never even heard of the sport. He came and played with us for 6 weeks during training sessions. I mentioned to him that we were going to be starting up in the winter for our adult season and asked him if he wanted to come play. At the time, he was 6'2" and could easily look like he was much older than 16. So he said, yeah, I'll come out and play. We took him to an adult tournament. He had kind of a deer in the headlights look when he went out on the floor the first time, but after a couple of minutes, he got into the swing of it. And this past summer, I was fortunate that I was able to get him involved with the USA Training Center out in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Hopefully this time next year, Josh will be on his way to Brazil for World Youth Games. And who knows what will happen later. But it was because of somebody working with him that knew that he had the potential to be involved in a sport, that he was brought to our attention, and we were able to get him involved. So please, as you're thinking about it, you're meeting these families, these kids, mention to them that there are possibilities out there. I know that my son was able to play goal ball. He was able to play on the USA team. And he was able to go to Rio's 5 years ago now. And he was, the whole new world opened to him through sports. So I hope that you'll keep in mind Georgia Blind Sports in the future. I will give you my email address. It's halsimpson@gablindsports.org. So if you want to get on our mailing list, if you have kids that want to be involved, if you want to know more about what we do, let me know. And I think they gave me 5 minutes, and I hope I'm right on time. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Hal. And if you get a chance, if you can go ahead in our chat and put your email information in there or the website in there, that would be great.
Great.
And then everyone will have access to that. We also have your information on our gvest.org site. And now we're going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful Ms. Zell Murray, our chair of GVEST, and also our director at Smoky Powell, and our vision coordinator for the state of Georgia. So you're on, Zell.
All right, welcome everybody, and I understand we have folks from all over this time, so we're really excited to have you join us here in Georgia. And I just wanted to say a couple of housekeeping items. Is Martha Vito, she'll send everyone a link um, to a Google form. So for those who, and also she's going to put it in the chat, and you'll need to complete this for the ACVREP credit. And also enter any questions for the panel in the chat, and we will get those and try to answer as time allows. And then there'll be a link for the chat in the survey. So I think that's it. I don't want to take any more time from Donna.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give our opening code, because what is ACVREP without that? So our opening code is STREET. That's STREET. STREET is our opening code. We will also go ahead and put STREET in the chat. One of our committee members will put the word STREET in the chat for our opening code. And you're on, wonderful, Donna. I'm going to stop sharing so that you will have the opportunity to go ahead and share your screen. You're on mute. There you
Wonderful. Go. Thank you, Susan. Whoever you are, Tara. Sorry. So I am very, very pleased to be here. We've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. And I have two co-presenters with me who I'd like to introduce. And one is Susan Kenyatte. She is has been a teacher for students with visual impairment for about 4 years with the Baltimore City Public Schools, and is now studying at Salus University to become an orientation mobility specialist. And I think it was fate that put us together, because she agreed to do her student practicum with me last summer. And so we've been working together on most of the things that we're going to be talking about. So the other co-presenter is our student, our client, Anthony Lancelotti, who has been totally blind all his life. He's been receiving orientation mobility training throughout the years, and wanted to become more confident and more proficient, especially with street. We've been focusing on street crossings. So he's a student at Stockton University, majoring in political science and criminal studies with a minor in disability studies, and is planning to become a lawyer and an advocate. Now he lives in New Jersey and travels to his lessons here in Baltimore by train. So I'm very pleased to have them here with us. And I'd like to just start out by saying we're kind of well, let me just go share this screen and share show you what our topics are going to be for today. Let me know if you cannot see this, but we're going to start out with a program put out by American Printing House for the Blind. It's called Crossings Without Traffic Control, and that's what we've been using primarily for that part of our program. And then Susan's going to talk about how we use that program remotely to provide the instruction remotely. Then I'm going to be talking about safety considerations, and then you're going to get a chance to try it. You're going to have some exercise comparing your warning time with crossing time, warning times of approaching vehicles with your crossing time, and then practice listening for approaching vehicles to hear them sooner. By the way, while you're listening to all this important stuff, I hope you'll get out a stopwatch, because that's going to be helpful and crucial for these exercises. And then we're going to do a little fun thing about teaching signalized traffic patterns with social distancing. And then we're going to have a time for you to process what we learned, and we're going to learn from you as well. So let me stop sharing just to say we kind of entered, as of almost a year ago, almost exactly a year ago now, a brave new world. And in the year that I've been doing this, I have found that the instructor and the student needs to be willing to consider unorthodox strategies. And so they need to be, both the student and the instructor needs to be flexible and creative, meaning willing to consider and create new ideas for doing the things that we used to do in the traditional way. And I have to say, can we turn off the recording at this part? Because I've been teaching O&M for more than 50 years. So if you talk about somebody who's done it the traditional way and knows how to do it, knows how to work her way around the block, literally, it's me. And so being able to do it during the pandemic has been requiring that we think about new ways of doing things. And I have found that to make this successful, we have to have everybody on the team being flexible and creative. And I found this out firsthand. My first student, his name is Jeremy, and so I set up the American Printing House for the Blind, APH program, and had everything ready to go, and found out it doesn't work on his computer because it's a Mac. So, you know, I'm the instructor and I know what I'm doing. So I said, well, I'll call, we're going to hang up and I'll call you later. And I didn't know how to figure it out. I'm Googling, like, how do I do this on a Mac? So I finally found about TeamViewer, which Susan will describe in a little bit. And I called him back and I said, so we're going to be using something called TeamViewer, you know, because I'm the instructor and I know what I'm doing. And he said, oh yeah, would you like to help me to help you download it? I use it all the time. So that was the first time that I found that the student needs to be involved as well as the instructor in coming up with creative things. I just started with a new student Wednesday this week, and she's deaf, has reduced visual fields. And I knew we were going to do well because she, you know, explained that we're going to have to do things differently, and we're going to come up with ways to be able to help you learn what you need to learn. She's tripping and falling, and she wants to be able to use a cane. And I'm thinking, okay, that normally requires in-person, close up. And so we're talking about how we can do this safely without, you know, during a pandemic. And she's already coming up with stuff. She said, well, we could do it on Zoom. And she's signing, you know, so we're chatting with Sign on Zoom. She says, I could use a broomstick, and then you could show me how to move the broomstick, and I could just have my empty hand, and, you know, you just show me how to do it. And of course, we didn't use either of those ideas, but I knew we were going to get along and we were going to do well because she was already thinking out of the box and thinking, how can we do this? Because she really wanted to learn how to use a cane and be safe. And we don't want to wait till the pandemic's over to be able to do it in the traditional way. We have to come up with other ideas. And so just want to emphasize that from the beginning, that we are going to have to be working, we're going to have to be flexible, and the student has to be flexible and be motivated enough to learn to learn what we're teaching, enough to be flexible and come up with new ways of doing things. Now, this brings me up, we're going to have you in breakout rooms at the end and discussing things, and you're going to choose one of two questions. And one of the questions is, I've just mentioned that the student needs to be flexible and motivated and willing to try new things. And so the question is going to be, that's all well and good, Donna, because you work with adults who can make decisions for themselves. How does this apply with children? So one of the questions that you can choose if you want to discuss it is, how do we apply this with children? So as we're going through this seminar, this webinar or whatever, I want you to be thinking about that, because like I said, at the last part of it is going to be discussing this. And so you might be, as we are going through everything, if your question is, how are we going to apply this, being flexible, being willing to try new things when it's a child who has somebody who's responsible for that child and the decision maker. So how does that apply? The other question that we have for you, let me just see if I got it, is to the end. Okay, so given that success with remote or socially distanced how can you apply what you learned today with the caseload that you have, or do you have any more ideas that you could share and that would be useful? So as we're going through this, be thinking about, oh, how can I apply this? How can I apply this? And then you're going to be meeting in the breakout rooms and talk about your ideas for how you can apply what we've learned, or new ideas that you have, like, hey, that's a great idea. Why don't we try this? And so be thinking about that as we continue. So let me see, I think. All right, we are now going to share my screen. So I hope I can do it in such a way that you don't have a bunch of gobbledygook on top of it. So let's see. Okay.
And Donna,
Yeah.
really quickly, just so that
Yes.
you know what we're looking at, we are looking at your screen,
Yeah.
but we are looking at your view as far as your Zoom is concerned. So
So you
if
have.
those,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of how I can get that out of the
Right,
way.
we see your bar, but we'll take your time. You're fine whenever you're able to.
Well, I can't figure out how to not show that. So hopefully that won't get into the way of people, but you can see basically what the material that you need to see, right? Can you see what you need to see?
Yes,
Yes.
we're seeing the slide.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to explain the APH computer program. It's called Crossings with No Traffic Control. Now, everything I'm explaining and more is on my website at www.sauerburger.org. That's sour like sauerkraut, SAUER, burger like hamburger, BURG, or sauerburger.org/Donna has one N in it, DONA, and then /remote. So if you go there, you're going to see all kinds of, you're going to see videos of lessons, you're going to see materials that you need, adaptions that you need to make, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to be very, very brief on what this program is. It is a program that basically has everything that you need as an instructor to teach your students, adults or children, to deal with crossings where there's no traffic control, meaning there's no stop sign for the street you're crossing. There might be a stop sign for the street beside you, but not the one you're crossing. There's no traffic signal, et cetera. There's just traffic going back and forth. And so this helps you teach that, partly with, there's a section that has like a description of the concepts that they need with videos for you to share with your student, to help them understand the concepts behind what they need to know to deal with these crossings. And then there are also exercises on the computer with simulations, both with hearing and listening, and these are very realistic. You'll think you're there. You'll want to step back because you don't want to get hit by the car that you can hear coming. And then there are also simulations visual, and I'll be using that one, the visual one, with my deaf student when we come to that point. That is not realistic, but it's just for students like her that are going to want to be able to compare their crossing time with the warning time of when they hear the vehicles coming. And she's going to have to do it visually. So it's all really cool programming, because it will present approaches based on how well you hear. I won't get into all the details, but then after the exercises, after you take the student through the exercises, there is another section where you have them consider the risks of crossing if they find themselves in a situation where they don't have enough warning from the approaching vehicles to know whether it's clear to cross or not. And so there's there's videos of what I like to call the Carlos and Cecilia. What do they do in what would they do? And so they're looking at different situations and analyzing the risks. And so you can take your students through that process, and so that they can then apply it to analyze the risks of crossings on their own. The last segment has instructions and videos to help you take your student on the road and apply it. And there are different things that we could not simulate, like teaching students how to learn to scan effectively and be able to see the vehicles reliably. So there's a video there showing how you can do that with your student on site. There's another video that shows how to have your student be able to listen to the traffic on the street in front of them, and then be able to judge how wide that street is just by listening to the traffic. So I'm going to show you segments of that video, and I used for this segment, for the other segment on scanning, I used a woman who had an actual visual field restriction. On this one, I used my son, Stefan, and so we're going to show just segments from the video that shows, first of all, how he stood in front of a street and learned how to tell by the distance of the vehicles what lanes that they were in. And then we took him to two places where one was a 4-lane street, one was a 2-lane street, and he had to listen to the cars on that street and then determine how wide the street was. So I will tell you that when you see him on the street, the second one where he's trying to figure out how wide it is, he's wearing sandals and bleeding out of his foot, because when he got out of the car, he thought he was in a parking lot and he has his eyes closed, and he wasn't, and he tripped on his tree root and broke open his toe. And so as he's walking up to the place, he's bleeding and dripping blood on the sidewalk. So the show must go on. And so I want to thank Stefan for the sacrifices he went through to make sure that his mom had a video to show to people. So let's take a look at that.
All right, we've got a street in front of us that's 5 lanes. And so what I'm going to be doing, Stefan, is telling you what lane the car is going to be in. And as it passes by, listen to what that sounds like in that lane, okay? And we're going to keep doing that. Especially I'm interested in the first 3 lanes. And when you think you can tell the difference between the first and the second and the third lane, say, I'm ready, and then you're going to start calling them out, okay? Okay. This next one's going to be in the 2nd lane.
So I'm telling him as the car approaches what lane it's in.
Second.
Good.
Now he's guessing.
Oh, here's one by itself.
4th.
Good. I would just say it was beyond the 3rd. Very good. What's this?
3rd.
Very good.
2nd.
Good.
I also feel the breeze from the 1st lane.
So you have more than sound, you have the breeze.
2nd.
Fast enough. Very good. All right. Are you feeling confident about ability to determine at least the first 3 lanes?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. All right. I think we can start applying this. All right. We are at a street, and as the cars come by, I'd like you to tell me what lane they're in. They're going to be coming from the right and the left. How about this one?
3rd.
3rd lane. Very good. Very good. Which way was he going?
To the left.
To the left. So in the 3rd lane, they're going to the left.
3rd and 2nd. 2nd.
Those were in the 2nd lane, right? So we already have all the information you need to figure out how wide the street is. Most streets are symmetrical. There are a few exceptions I'll tell you about in a minute. But most streets are symmetrical. So how many lanes do we have going to the right?
I would guess would be 2.
2. Good. We haven't heard anybody in the 1st lane yet, right?
Right.
But we're going to assume it's going the same direction as the 2nd lane.
Yeah.
But we noticed that by the 3rd lane, they're going which way?
To the left.
To the left. All right. So the first 2 lanes are going off to the right. 3rd lane's going to the left. If this is symmetrical, how many lanes is this street?
4.
4. All right.
All right. Let me stop sharing. And so that is the program. And Susan is going to explain now how we used it remotely.
Okay. Excuse me. To use APS program, there are things you need. You need 2 computers, one for you and one for the student. You need the APH program with crossing with no traffic software installed in your computer. And then you will need phones and other things that, or any other thing that you'll communicate between you and the student. And then you'll need a stopwatch, you'll need a risk analysis checklist. And the important thing, you'll need a remote control program. And in our case, we had TeamViewer, where the student will control your computer or your laptop. And from there, he will press the spacebar key when he hears the vehicle approaching. And in our case, we learned that there is a little bit lag between Anthony's, who was our client, and my computer. So there was that lag, and Donna is going to explain how we worked out to cover that problem. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Great. Yeah. So when the sound starts on my computer, there's about a half a second delay before Anthony was able to hear it, or whoever I'm working with can hear it. So we had to build that in and try to adjust. We changed the crossing time so that it would reflect, because the computer thinks that he doesn't hear it until half a second later than he actually did. So we had to make that adjustment. And I'm going to get more into detail when I talk about the next factor, which is safety considerations. So to begin with, I have to say, as I said, I've been teaching for more than 50 years, and providing for safety, kind of second nature to me. I haven't given it a thought for the last 45 years, because once I got my act together, I've been able to do it. I can take somebody who I've never worked with before, totally blind, to a very busy intersection and feel confident that I can provide for that person's safety. So now we're in a pandemic. And so I'm thinking, well, how can I do that if I'm not close to them? Oh, I have an idea. I'll get myself a pole, a 6-foot pole, and I won't be next to the student, but I will be able to convey information to the student, to stop or whatever. And so half pole will travel. And so how am I going to guide the person? I don't want to be close. I don't want to get, virus and whatever. Hey, 6-foot pole. We'll just guide them with a 6-foot pole. So I'm going to share our experience with these various and sundry adaptations, starting with guiding Anthony with a pole. And the video is going to be showing Susan approaching Anthony. Approaching Anthony and handing him a pole. He takes the pole from one end, she's on the other end, and is in front and guiding him. And he's walking along a narrow sidewalk, not too narrow. And I will say that we learned a lot. I hope you don't get dizzy watching because I speeded them up here. We learned early that when a person is 6 feet away on the end of a pole, you can't really, you can't really make sure that they don't fall off the curb. You can't make sure exactly where they're going to be walking. When you're guiding somebody yourself, with them on your arm, you know exactly where they are, and you can keep them away from the edge. But here, he's walking right near a pole there. And so you don't know exactly where he is. And we learned early that he needs to be responsible for his own safety. You'll see he's using his cane. Here he's walking again very close to a pole. So he uses his cane to make sure he doesn't bump into it. As she turns the corner, he doesn't turn it as sharp and ends up behind a big pillar, has to come out around the pillar. So we learned that, yeah, you can guide someone with a pole, but you can't provide for their safety as you can when you're guiding somebody with them using your arm. So we learned that this will work with somebody who can use a cane or whatever they need to keep themselves from tripping and falling off the curb and bumping into poles and whatnot. The pole serves the purpose of telling what direction they need to go. And so that's the only information that they need, really. If they can be independent travelers, they can, instead of calling out, "Where are you?" and and trying to do that. So and I'm eager to hear, somebody was going to be trying it this week and called and find out how to do it. And they're going to actually try a rope. So it's easier to carry. I mean, I always was showing up to the train platform with a 6-foot pole, but with a rope. And again, all that they need is information on what direction to go. They need to provide for their own safety. So I'm eager to hear how that goes. She was going to report back to me, and I guess she got busy, or I ignored her or something. So anyway, so we're talking safety considerations. And so now let's go to Donna's being confident that she can provide for the safety at a street corner, because she's been doing it for 50 years, and now she should be able to do it with a pole. So what I did, we see in the video here that my student who is wearing a mask, and I'm wearing a mask, and he's in the front of a pole. I'm behind on the other end of the pole, and we're going to practice now in the sidewalk, having him respond to a tug on the pole, because all I need to do is give him, instead of yelling stop or whatever, I'm going to tug on the pole, and he's going to then respond. So I'm giving a little pull, he walks forward, and then he walks forward, but this time I give a little tug, and whoa, he pulls back. This is going to work. And I'm all excited because, okay, got to have a pull. I'm good. So then he goes to the corner to start his crossing, and a car pulls out in front of him. And I didn't like the way it was going. And I gave him a tug, and do you see what happens? He went right on. He ignored the tug. So Donna's a slow learner. She thinks, okay, the problem was I didn't give him enough of a warning. So now we're trying it with Anthony. And instead of a tug, I'm pulling it out of his hand. That ought to get his attention. So I didn't pull it here, and he went forward, and then he goes forward, and I pull it out of his, and he stops right away. Of course, so did Jeremy. But again, Donna's a slow learner. And so she's confident that we have a pole, we're good to go. She can provide for the safety. And so we're going to go practice to and stop this a moment. We have a corner. Anthony steps out. A car cuts him off. And so as you can see, I did not yank it out of his hand. It still got it. He, thank goodness, backed up. When he heard the car coming in front of him, backed up on his own. Donna was behind him, freaking out, because I was so distracted with what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to monitor. This is not the way I've been doing it for 50 years. Now I'm doing it with a pole, and I've got to remember, I've got to yank it out of his hand. Oh, okay, is this a good situation? Do we go? All the kind of things I consider just second nature, I've now got to go back. And so we're just going to follow this and see. Head in his hand and face his, oh my God.
Kind of.
Yes, I was doing
What
that.
happened there? Donna didn't have her act together.
It wasn't the right
It was
time.
not stopping for you.
But it was the right time.
It was the right time.
Okay, and Anthony's asking questions that any student would ask. Was that the right time? Did I do the right thing? I'm not able to answer because I'm freaking out. I was totally incapacitated. And I will, let me see what time it is, if I have time to. Yeah, so let's just take a look at what could have been done that Donna would be more prepared. So this happened, as you can see, we were dressed for the summer. So this happened quite a long time ago, and I've had the intervening months to think about this and what it means to provide for safety when you're doing it in a way that you haven't done it for the last 50 years, either remotely or in person, but from 6 feet away. So I had a vague kind of an understanding. There was something about making judgment about whether the student was ready. And, if something goes wrong, it was because you misjudged that the person was ready or whatever. And I went to a presentation by William Kohler a couple weeks ago, and he presented something. Let me see if I got everybody's. Yeah, he's been working with Sarah Morrow and Mary Tellefson to come up with safety considerations, and they showed a 4-item list of 4 items, and I took that list and made it my own. And so I'm not what I'm going to share with you now is not necessarily what they were doing. I would just tell you that I took from that this beautiful list of 4 things to consider. And we're going to go through them. And I will tell you that if I had had a brain in my head, if I had had this list, I would not have been standing out there at the corner with Anthony in a way that I was not able to function. I was not able to provide for his safety. The 4 things are, number 1, the technology and strategy used. By the way, those of you who have the PowerPoint, I added strategy. Yours just says technology used. I added strategy because I was using a strategy to provide for safety. And so take a look at that technology and strategy. Is it reliable? Is it functional? Do you need to tweak it some? Susan had mentioned that when using this APH program remotely, there's a little bit of a lag. And I found out, I thought I was being very clever because I used it with my husband's computer, which is right next to me. And I noticed that it was about a half a second later that it came on his computer from when it started on mine. So I'm thinking, okay. So I measured that time and then I added it to the crossing time, and I was being very cool. And I'm blanking out on his name now. Jack Mitchell was using it and noticed that time lag can vary depending on internet strength and whatever. So what kind of tweaks need to be made? This was another example here. There was another mobility instructor who was helping to orient her. She was, that's right, the student, an adult, had accidentally diagonally crossed a huge, horrible intersection, and he vowed not to do that again. So it's the pandemic, and so he wants to learn how not to do that again, but what is she going to do? So they ended up having him standing at the corner, and basically what she was able to accomplish remotely without him crossing was to have him learn to use the sound of the traffic to line up. Now, he'd been totally blind for quite a while, so I'm not sure how he got this far without being able to do that. But she was able to teach him remotely to listen to the sound of traffic and use that sound to line up. Now, she also had him report to her what he was hearing. And she was noticing that what he was hearing wasn't what she was seeing, because I'm sorry, they were using FaceTime. And actually, since he can't see it all, she was having her students figure out how to hold the phone without using their hands free. So he said, well, I'll just strap it to my forehead. And so he was standing at the corner, listening to the traffic and reporting to her what he heard. And she was looking at the traffic to see whether it was right or not. And it wasn't the same. What she was seeing was not the same as what he was hearing. And she found out later through some very clever stuff that even though they were hearing each other immediately, instantaneously, what she was seeing was 20 seconds later than what he was hearing. So there was a definite tweak needed to be made. By the way, I just have a little story. He was wearing that on his forehead and listening and working with her instructor, and somebody came up to offer him to help. And so I would love to have been there when the person standing next to him, and he turns, and on his forehead is his instructor, and looking at each other. And so he said, no, thank you. I'm out here on a lesson with my instructor. So anyway, my point is that whatever strategy or technology you come up with, make sure it's reliable. Make sure it's functional, and work with it enough to find out, are some tweaks needed to be made? Do you need to adjust for the fact that you're not seeing what the person is hearing, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to
have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Do you want to wait to the end to take questions, or
if it's about this? No, go ahead.
It seemed relevant. Actually, it's from Lisa. Lisa, I might ask you to unmute if you can and ask it, because it's a little wordy. And I want to make sure that I'm capturing it.
Oh, that's my forte, being wordy.
Okay.
The concept of your poll, I know why you're using it, Donna. I was just wondering if it might be easier, instead of having something that both teacher and student have to hold, because that also distracts the student. from
Okay,
thinking.
what was your idea?
What about using a lighter pole, like a rigid cane or even an ID cane that only you are holding, and be ready to tap their shoulder, or even holding it lower and tapping their leg?
First of all, the cane is not long enough. But second of all, Lisa, I love you. And you're already doing what I asked, which is thinking, all right, well, that's cool. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And so I want you to hold that. Everybody, I'm sure you're all coming up with, well, why didn't you try this? Well, what about that? And what about this? And how can I apply this to my student? And what about that? Keep those, write those down, because that's what you're going to be sharing in the breakout rooms. You're going to say, hey, I have this idea, and blah, blah, blah. And then after the breakout rooms, we're going to bring you all back and ask you to please share. So we're hoping to have lots of time afterwards to share. So Lisa,
Sure.
thank you. And you're doing just the right thing. Just write it down so that you can share that later. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let me go back and share. So I want to emphasize that when I say that you need to look at your technology and your strategy, is it reliable? Do you find things like there's a lag, or something that needs to be adjusted, or that guiding someone with a pole, well, they need to take care of themselves, things like that you find out. I want to emphasize that this is where we have a strength. We as a profession are innovative. I mean, hello, even just inventing the strategies to teach somebody who's blind to travel independently, that took a lot of creation. A lot of it came, by the way, from Russ Williams, who was blinded in the war and came up with ideas and then taught them to the instructors that are teaching us today. So it doesn't necessarily need to be ideas that come from the instructor, but this is our time to shine now. This is our time to be creative, innovative. And so rather than saying, oh, we shouldn't use this technology, we shouldn't be teaching during the pandemic because we don't know what might happen and what might go wrong. That's true. Something might go wrong and something might be not what you expected, but that's where we do our problem solving. That's where we play with it enough to find out what needs to be tweaked and then figure out how to tweak it and then make it functional. We had a little work group that got suspended because we got distracted with some other issues that came up. But we had a little work group of about 6 or 7 people who would meet every month and say, did you try this? Did you try that? Well, did you notice that this happens when, and so I want to encourage people to do that, share with each other. If Jack Mitchell hadn't shared that with me, I would still be under the delusion that, the time lag is half a second and you deal with it. But now, okay, thank you, Jack. So how are we going to deal with that? The American Printing House for the Blind is working right now. They have a fabulous system. Thank goodness they did this, where when you first start with your student, you have them press the bar when they get a signal. And so that the computer can figure out how long is it taking this person to press the bar. We did that because some people who have, either, physical issues or cognitive issues may take some time from the time they hear the signal until they push it, and the computer wants to make that adjustment when it presents exercises. So thank goodness we did that, because now we need it, because it's not a physical or cognitive issue on the student's part, it's the internet part. So this can be all tweaked. And so we take this opportunity to come up with strategies and technologies that we think will work with them, practice with them, share with others what works and what doesn't, what needs to be changed and tweaked. And so we can all benefit from it, and our students are going to be able to be taught. So technology and strategy used. Is it going to be reliable and functional, and what kind of tweaks do you need to make it work? The second thing to consider is the student's skill level. Does the student need prompting now, or is the student able to reliably and consistently do the activity without prompting? And the third thing is the environment. How much risk is there? And I'm going to share with you a slide in a minute. We're going to talk more about how to evaluate the level of risk for street crossings. And then lastly, supervision or monitoring for safety, how much is going to be needed for this situation given the learner skill level and the environment? And then is the strategy for intervening, oh my, sorry guys, is the strategy for, I'm sorry, it's covered. Let me get this off. Is the strategy for intervening reliable? And if not, how can you make it so? So supervision and monitoring, how much is needed, and is the strategy for intervening reliable? By the way, those who are under the illusion that you can yell stop to somebody and have them being, being reliably responsive to that, have another thing coming. You need to reconsider that, because a person who is so concentrated and working on whatever the street crossing may or may not even hear you yelling or know what to do, know that it's you. So this considering is your strategy reliable has always been the case. This is not new. It's just that now we're dealing with new strategies for intervening. And so we need to do what we always have done, and that is consider how reliable is that. So let me go through evaluating the level of risk in your environment. And we're going to talk just street crossings here. And in general, whether you're at an uncontrolled crossing or a signal. And by the way, I have lists of risk assessment tools for you. For uncontrolled crossings, it's at www.sauerberger.org/Donna/cross credit. That's a self-study guide for instructors to learn how to teach at uncontrolled crossings. And then cross credit, the page you want is W1. So it's cross credit W1. Tara, could you please put into the chat those two links, www.sauerberger.org/Donna/cross-credit W1. And for signalized crossings, we have another self-study guide that was developed by Jean Borkman and Bonnie Dotson-Burke and myself. And that's at www.sauerberger.org/Donna/signal risk, has the page where you consider risk. And if you look down there, it says a general scheme for analyzing the risk. So Tara, if you need that link, let me know and I'll send it to you. But hopefully that's going to be in your chat now. So in both cases, you're going to look at how likely will there be a conflict. And a conflict is the engineer's term for two beings being on a collision path, like a pedestrian starting to cross and a vehicle is about to cross that crosswalk. They're on a collision path, and if one of them doesn't do something, they're going to collide. That's a conflict. How likely will there be a conflict? How likely is it that there's going to be a car that's going to present itself unexpectedly when you're at an uncontrolled crossing? And then if that does happen, if there is a car coming that's going to collide, if something's not done, how likely is it going to hit you? And so each of those have little factors to consider so that you can determine, have a more objective way to figure out how likely is it that they're going to hit you? What factors are you consider to do that? And then lastly, if they do hit you, how likely is it going to be serious injury or death? And there's a little chart in there that talks about speed of vehicles and how likely that if you're hit at that speed, you're going to be seriously injured or killed. So let's take a look at what I was doing with Anthony. And if I had looked at these four things, first of all, are you able to monitor? Are you able to use that strategy? I thought I had it cool, but when I got out there, I froze. I was not able to use that strategy for monitoring for safety. So number one, right there, I would not have been doing it had I taken the time to think about it. Number two, how much risk is there? Well, there's a million cars turning right. I took them to this intersection with a lot of turning cars. There's a lot of conflicts. And whether he would be hit, I don't know, probably not. We would look at the factors of how likely they would hit him. But if they did, the chances of it being seriously injured or killed were low, because at that speed, it's very low. I do know a woman personally who was killed in a parking lot right here in Maryland by a very slow car. So it's not that he wouldn't be killed or seriously injured if he was hit at that speed, but it's unlikely. He's more likely to be killed or injured by somebody coming from the left, turning from the left because they're going faster. But so if I had looked at the environment and I said, well, it's a high risk, and then I look at the student's skill, well, I didn't know how skillful Anthony was. So if I had looked at those three things, I would never have put myself in that situation. The way to monitor was not reliable. It was a high risk environment, and I didn't know the skill level of the student. Thank goodness Anthony knew how to pull back, and he was actually very skilled at that, but I didn't know that. What was the fourth thing? Let me just see. Yeah, so so I love this list of four things because it helps you kind of step back and say, oh, let me think about this. The student I'm working with now, the deaf woman with visual impairment, she really wants to learn how to use a cane. And I'm normally right there with them. I mean, one of my favorite ways to help them learn how wide the arc has to be is to put my feet at the right, width apart and then have them move the cane between. Well, I can't do that from 6 feet away. So I had to come up with ways of, I had her going up against the grass on one side, and then I had a folding chair that I put on the other side. And then I stepped back. I said, okay, that's your width. And normally I'm a hand over hand or hand under hand for adjustment. I wasn't going to be able to do that. So we had to come up with other ways of doing it. And we are going to be able to, we did figure out some creative ways. And like I said, she was flexible. She was motivated to learn and flexible and willing to consider unorthodox ways of getting it done. And I may not be, I was thinking originally that I was going to provide some instruction or helping her practice by having her set up her iPad or cell phone or something where I could be watching her. And I don't think I'm going to be ending up having to do that because she is close enough, and I am able to do it from 6 feet away, and then we're signing and we're able to communicate. But if I wasn't, I would consider, I'd go through my little list. Is it a good idea to have me watch, helping her practice while I'm sitting in my house and she's sitting in her house? I would look at, what about that cell phone or the FaceTime? How reliable is that? What if it goes out? What if it, the battery dies or whatever? Am I going to be leaving her in a dangerous situation or whatever? What is her level of skill? Well, she's definitely still learning. And what is the risk in the environment? So we'd have to set up an environment where if the phone went dead or I'm not able to monitor, she's not going to be at risk. So I just love that list. So I'm just sharing that with you, that you can look at these four things and assess the risk. Let's see. Okay. Let's see how we're doing on time. We're not doing good on time. We're going to give you one little exercise. No, we're not. We were going to have you have the experience of, well, I'm not going to tell you what you aren't going to get. But we're going to go now to a way of teaching traffic signal patterns that I have found to be very successful. And we're going to talk about the adaptations we made to be able to do it in person. So let's see here. Okay. Now, like I said, I've been teaching a long time, and I noticed after about 10 years of teaching, that when I was trying to teach people about the traffic patterns, how the traffic moves through the intersection, and I was using, the tactile maps and little cars and things like that, and they were kind of getting it, but not really. I mean, as we started applying, I'm realizing their understanding is very tenuous. It's not really, I mean, they know how to say what I want to hear, but not really apply it because it didn't internalize the understanding. So I remember specifically the time I first did this it was with a woman in a, and she had some cognitive issues. So we ended up, I went to her hallway in her apartment, and I said, this is the intersection. And I had her be a car and me be a car, and using ourselves as cars, I took her through all the different patterns, and she understood it. And so I just started, I do this all the time now. Instead of using toy cars and models, I
Maybe
have
that
them
works
use-
with adults. I wouldn't try it with a kid. She
Well-
wouldn't hear anything because Acacia would be laughing so loud it wouldn't work.
I'm sorry, is someone speaking? Okay, sorry, I didn't know if that was for me or what. Actually, I'm doing this with a kid, and well, he's a teenager, and extremely brilliant. And but when I was just orienting him basically I realized he didn't know which side of the street cars drive on. He didn't know anything about the traffic patterns, although he had had instruction for a while. And so I set up in his home intersecting carpets, and so that we would be using that. So I'm going to just share what we did. His mom ended up being a car as well. Whoops. So we have here, he's getting the lay of the land. He's walking along the carpet in and out. And
So you're on one end of 33rd, I'm on the other end of 33rd, and we want to both go in the direction we're facing. If we start walking, do you think we're going to have a problem?
so we start walking towards each other and
Oh,
bumping.
man, oh no, we collided, oh dear. So let's go back to our starting place and figure out how the heck we can avoid that happening. Let me ask you, in your school, I bet there's 1 million kids in that hallway, right? And they're all going opposite direction, you know, they're going one way or the other. How do they avoid colliding with each other? Are there certain rules that you've heard? I'm sorry?
Everyone stays on the right side.
Everyone stays on the right side. Let me do that. Yeah, so I'm moving to my right, and we will see if that works. You on your right? Are you on the right side? Okay, let's see if that works. Let's see if that works.
We move forward and pass each other.
Oh, cool. That worked nice. All right, let's turn around and get ready.
So now mom's joined us, and we're trying different patterns, and he's kind of being involved. Now she and I, just stop a second here. So she and I are going to be coming at him from the direction opposite of him. And he's going to have to figure out, how do cars turn left? And I will share with you that using the example of what happens in his school didn't work, because I said, when you want to turn left, do you just plunge left, or wait for the kids to pass you? And he said, oh, I just plunge left, they wait for me. And I thought, okay, well, that's not how it works on the street. So so I explained to him that his mother and I are going to be approaching him. He has moved into the intersection and is waiting to turn left. Let's see what happens.
We're going straight through, and we're going to make noise as we do, so you know where we are. And you pull forward. You're ready.
So we're moving forward. I pass him, and he cuts right in front between us and cuts his mother off.
Right in front of her.
Yeah, you did.
Oh
That
my
was
goodness.
big.
All right, let's see.
I'll be logging you down.
So we try it
All right,
again.
ready again? All right, Sean, go ahead.
Now he's back for it. He has to come forward to the intersection and wait. This time he waits till mom passes and turns
That's a
left.
good question.
And then he asks a beautiful question. Let me pause a second. Beautiful question. I mean, so he's got his mind going, and he's thinking about all these. And now he knows when we say there's a driver in a car in the intersection waiting to turn left, he knows all about that, because he had to wait till his mother passed until he could turn left. So he knows what's going on there in the intersection, because he lived it. Now we are with a couple, a man and wife, man and husband or something. No, that is husband and wife, and they are deaf, or have a hearing impairment and visual impairment. And we set up the tables and counters in their little store to be the intersections. So we're going to see us walking in pattern.
Okay. All right, so we're going to learn the 3 different patterns of movement, okay?
So there's a lot of gratuitous hugging and whatnot, as we're just showing a speeded up of us going into different patterns and crossing each other and finding there was that hug, little off, not permitted, but it happened. So now we're going to find out, they're finding out that from opposite directions, they both turn left at the same time. Let's see what happens.
Let's try it here. So you're gonna both turn left to see if there's a problem because you have more room. Okay.
They both go forward.
Go.
And they turn left and
Nice.
both touch each other.
So if there's enough room, that's fine, that works. So another way to provide that green arrow is to say that both of the left turners can go at the same time. When that's happening, who else can go? Let's get you guys back there again. No, okay.
So they line up facing each other.
And you will be
Opposite
turning left.
side.
Can I go straight through here?
So can I cut in the perpendicular street?
No. How about,
There's going to be collision, it
how about
says.
if I'm right behind him and can I go straight across?
And can I go parallel to them?
No, she's going to be turning
No,
into
that's
me.
going to be a problem.
Anyone? What if I'm coming up here?
From the
and turning
perpendicular
right?
street and turn right.
That would be all right, right?
So right hands can take rights while the lefts are taking lefts.
Yeah, let's try it all at the same time.
So I'm turning right, they're turning left.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
It is cool.
All right, so, whoops. All right, so now, I want to do that with Anthony, but we can't get closer than, you see that involved collisions and huggings and all kinds of stuff. So how am I going to do that with Anthony? Anthony, do you want to share, because you had training with toy cars and maps and whatever. You want to share what it was like when we did finally figure out how to do it, what it was like, and then see if we can have people figure out how did we do this.
Sure. I mean, when I did the toy, in the past, as you stated, I've been totally blind since birth, and I've had worked with various O&M instructors through the years, and we've used the products such as the Tactile Town and the Wheatley, and we've done the toy cars to illustrate traffic patterns. And I mean, those products, they were good, indoors for indoor settings, buildings, but so when it came to the outdoor settings, because it was like two-dimensional, where you have to, and you have to take a skill set, and you have to transfer that to outdoors. But what you and I did was, can anyone guess what we did? That made
let's have people in the chat guessing, how did we provide this experience of moving Anthony being a car and us being cars? How did we do that without being closer than 6 feet? Anybody have ideas? Those of you who have been to previous sessions are not allowed to put into the chat. What kind of ideas do you have? Pool noodles, I love it. Yeah, that's right. That would kind of extend it a little bit, right? And you could kind of rattle them and bump into the pool noodles. Any other ideas? Mark off lines on the floor. Well, they were carpets so that they could tell where the edge was. And when I'm in a hallway, there's the walls of the hallway. Whistle a happy tune. Using furniture. Yeah, I love it. We could move the furniture around, right? Be the cars. Beautiful. Well, Anthony, I think they're getting kind of close to. You want to explain what we actually did?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can all go down to your local home improvement warehouse, your Lowe's, your Home Depot, and just use the, they call them shopping carts, but they're more like hand trucks. And we did, we used the simulation out in the parking lot. I was up against the curb, and I was a car, Donna was a car, and Susan was a car, and we used the shopping carts. And for me, that really helped cement, the flow of traffic patterns. For me, that really hit home.
So being in a 3D environment where you're actually immersed in the model rather than, trying to project yourself into a toy model.
Exactly.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to really quickly show our adventures with shopping carts, and we intended to start with shopping carts, but we couldn't find, we found these hand carts, which were even better. So let me just let me set it up. So Susan and Anthony, we've got Anthony next to like a little curb because we wanted him to experience a corner. And Susan is, and he's facing forward, and then Susan is on the other side of this imaginary intersection with her hand cart and facing each other. And then I come between them along the imaginary perpendicular street, just to give them an idea of where that is. So here I come, cross the path. And then I turn around and come back. So he has a.
This street also has people coming from your right. Cross the path to the left.
So, Anthony, so we are both on K Street, okay? And our parallel line then is going to be Capitol Street. So if we are going to, you're coming and I'm going, is there any problem?
So if we go straight ahead, are we going to collide?
I'm on your right side to it.
We already stay in our own lane.
Okay.
So Anthony already knew if we stay in our own lines, we're going to be good.
Yeah, because we'll be fine because we'll miss each other because we're going in opposite directions.
Okay, can we try that?
So they pass each other, and as expected, no collisions. Now they back up. Now they're going to talk about, can he turn right? Will there be a collision if he turns right? He says if we turn left, then we're going to collide. So he already has the idea.
All right, I was going to make you, well, I still going to make you. All right, so yeah, show us, she's going to come straight through and cross K Street and continue on Capitol. You're going to turn right and go off onto K Street, right?
So let's see what happens. His only problem was when he jammed into the curb, she goes straight through, he turns right, and there's no collision. Other than,
so there was no problem other than getting around the corner.
Yeah, getting colliding.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see how that looks. So you're coming straight.
Now we're going to have to turn left, and he already knows what's going to happen. Oh, there's a big crash.
Tragedy. I hope nobody was hurt. Oh.
See your insurance card.
He says, what about our insurance? It's your insurance.
You paying me because I was
Oh, that's a good question. Who's at fault here?
No, it would be me, obviously. Because I made a left and no one came traffic.
Yes, exactly.
So he knows about the rules and he yields. So now we're going to try it again, but this time he's going to yield.
I think you just said you had to yield.
I was going to think about how would that look if I yield.
Okay.
So he says, I'll wait till she passes me, then I'll turn left. So he's kind of putting together, what would that look like if I yield? So they come towards each other. He comes into the intersection, she keeps going, he waits.
All right, now you can make the left.
And then he turns left. And no collision.
Nice. Yes, you got the idea.
All right. So that's our adaptation of a strategy that I found really works with helping people with developing concepts of traffic patterns. And we were able to do it. So you guys had some good ideas in the chat too. So this is not the only way, but using shopping carts. And some people have said that this would be nice with the kids too, because there wouldn't be any body contact, but they would be able to, push a shopping cart or something into each other's, into the other shopping cart. So, all right. So we are now going to have you look at, consider two questions. We're going to have you going into breakout rooms. Let me share the screen again and have you look at the two questions. So 2 questions to consider. Let me get this up here so it's out of the way. Okay. We're going to have you choose to go into a room and discuss with Tara. I think there's enough people that we can have these in pairs. So with one other person, you can either talk with somebody about how can you apply what you learned here. And do you have any more ideas that you can share that might be useful? You guys have already come up with some, and so sharing that. So you can go into with another person to brainstorm together. How can you apply what you learned to the students that you have now or that you will be having? And the second question is, given that the success with remote or socially distanced instruction requires the students who are motivated and willing to be flexible and creative to work around the obstacles or limitations that the pandemic is imposing, how does that work? How can this be done when you're working with children whose decision makers are not the decision makers? So how would that look? How would that model look? So those are the two questions. And Tara, could you, if you'd like, I'll put that into the chat. So
they're in the chat.
They're in the chat. Oh, you are too cool. I take back everything I ever said about you. All right. So let me stop sharing. So what's going to happen is Tara is going to open up some breakout rooms. You should see down below breakout rooms. And if you click on that, it shows you a list of rooms. And Tara, did you make it so that they can join, or did you make it so that you have to assign them?
We decided that it was going to be that they could decide which one they wanted to go into.
Okay, because it looks like right now it's not that way. So we'll see.
Well, I have to recreate it.
Okay, we'll recreate them.
Yes.
All right, so if you click on that right now, you'll see a list, and I think we have 50 rooms. Is that right, Tara?
Yes.
All's done, said and done. All right, so you're going to go into a room of your choice. You're going to go join the room that you want. And if you find that there's more than one person, more than two people in your room, go to another room. You can actually click on leave room, and then it'll give you a choice of, do you just want to leave it all together or go to another room? You click on go to another room, and you can see who is in what room, and then click on a room that has just one, so that you end up with two. Now, if you're going to work on the first question, which is how can you apply this? What kind of ideas might you have to expand it? You're going to go in rooms 1 through 30. You'll find a person there who is also interested in how can we apply this, and discuss that together. When you're done, you're going to come back out, and we're eager to hear what you would like to share. If you want to discuss, oh gosh, how am I going to have my student be flexible and willing to do this when it's really the parents who make the decision, or the guardians. So if you want to discuss that, go through rooms 50 down to 30, 50 to 30. So Tara, and please, if you can leave any time, if I understand correctly, be careful you don't leave meeting. That will kick you off. Just be real careful. Don't press the button that says leave meeting. Press the button that says leave room. And that can bring you back here, and you can find out we're all talking about you. But
you'll also have a 60-second warning when it's time for us to come back in. And just to let you know that room 1 is where our closed captioner is going to be. So even if it's more than 2 people, if you need closed captioning, just go to room 1. And then we'll just go from there. Again, the questions are in there. And if you have any other questions that you need, some of us will pop in there and see if we can help you out. But other than that, when you're ready to let me know, Donna, I will open the room.
Yes. How long did you give them? It's what, 20 till or a quarter till or something?
Yeah, so they'll have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, perfect. Okay, so 5 minutes, guys. That'll maybe give you a minute to find your room, and then 4 minutes to discuss. And you should see, like Tara said, when it's a minute left, you'll see a countdown. All right, see you guys in 5 minutes. Thank you. So go to the breakout, click on a room, and hop in.
Excuse me, Donna, this is Catherine. I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I'm noticing on my end, and so I thought that only the host and co-host can see the breakout room icon option. Otherwise, we cannot put ourselves in a breakout room.
Okay, Tara, I think you've got it so that it has to be assigned. Could you open it up, recreate, so that they have the option to go in, and then that way they'll see it.
Could have swore I changed that just now, but I will do so. Darn get these things started already.
It's fixed now. You just have to click the three little dots.
But now it's saying the breakout rooms are going to close in 38
Yeah, it's going to
seconds.
take a minute.
Yeah, because I had to close them.
Yeah, I was afraid of that. When I saw a sign, I thought, oh, this doesn't look right. I should have said something. Anyway, any other questions before we take care of this? Okay, when she sets it up the way we want it, you should see a little box. I'm glad you folks let us know that you're not seeing anything. Unless you can make them all co-hosts, Tara. How's that? All right. Do you see it now?
3 seconds. 3 seconds.
All right. We're going to give her 3 seconds.
All right. Once again, the button that is checked is let participants choose their room.
Yeah, that's not the way it looks. It looks like a sign.
A minute ago, mine looked like I could join a room and I'm not a co-host.
I was just knocked out of my room.
Okay, so everyone, we closed the rooms because it looked as if everyone was not able to get into a room. Currently, you should be able to assign yourself to a room. That is the way that it is set up. I'm not sure why some people could get in and some people couldn't.
If you click on more, then a box comes up that says join breakout room, and click on that, and then it will list all the rooms, and beside the number it will say join.
Tara.
Yes.
I accidentally just clicked open all rooms and I'm a co-host. Sorry.
Good. Actually, that's good. I think it's set up. It looks like it's ready to go.
It's ready. People are getting in there. That's fine, Sarah.
Yeah, so everybody can get in, go and join a room and have fun. Stay in your room till you behave yourself.
Oh, I see. Now I can click join. Cool.
Yeah.
Yes. And the numbers are going down, so more people should be getting in there. 30
through 50 is for talking about how to apply this with children. 1 through 30 is how to just take what you've learned and apply it and come up with other ideas. Looks like they're going in.
Tara?
Yes?
This is Heather. I have to be assigned as a captioner in the breakout room if I'm to caption in a breakout room, and I'll have to reset up the captions once I come back into the main room. So if somebody can come into breakout room number 1, assign me as captioner, and then when I come back, I will need to be reassigned as captioner.
Okay. Do you think you can do that? Can you go into breakout room 1 for me, Sharon? The only problem is I think only the host can put you in as closed captioner.
Yeah, can you join it?
I don't know that I can join a room.
Does Heather need to caption? Because there's so many breakout rooms. Can she just stay here?
Well, what we said was that room 1 will have.
Oh, would be the caption room. Okay.
So yeah, I got it.
Okay.
So can the captioner join room 1?
Yes, I was in room 1, but I have to be assigned as captioner, and then I have to set up captions in that room. The captions don't transfer in breakout rooms.
Oh, gosh.
We're still not seeing breakout rooms here, Donna. My panel hasn't.
I see a lot of people in the breakout room, so who's not seeing it?
More button. I just see the microphone, participants, chat, share screen, record, closed caption, and reactions, and leave.
Are you a participant trying to get into the room, or are you the captioner? Or I don't.
No, I'm a participant. It's
You're a participant, and when you hit breakout rooms,
I'm one of the co-hosts, and I wasn't planning on going into one of the rooms, but I don't have that as an option on mine either.
Okay, when you hit breakout rooms, you see a list of all the participants, right? And then go down and you'll see the rooms, and you can join one of the rooms. Go down below the participants and you start seeing room number 1, number 2, number 3.
Showing me 38 participants. And let's see more. Save chat. Nope, I don't see anything here. I see the chat.
Okay, you don't see along the bottom breakout rooms.
No.
Darn.
could it be that the version of Zoom that I'm using to
Yes,
access
yes,
Zoom
you have an
is-
old version.
That's what I was
Oh,
wondering too. If
yeah.
you,
All right, let's
Well,
have a
we'll listen to
discussion
the
here.
discussion.
Yeah.
We'll listen to the discussion that other people have when they report out. I'm
Yes,
good
you
with
hear that. And what we can do is those of you who have the old version of Zoom can, the topic will be, how can you apply this to what you're doing and what ideas do you have? Why don't we just have a discussion among the 40 of us that are here? Why don't we unmute everybody and, or everybody unmute yourself and come up with some, how can you apply this to what you're the student?
Donna, my big question is, how do you find a parking lot that?
Okay, we're not asking questions. How do you apply this?
I'm going to have a tow truck come pull cars out of the parking lot.
Okay, so you can use this with your students then, huh? Tell me about your students. Are they children or adults or?
Teenagers.
Teenagers, oh, they're gonna love this. All right, and we did have a challenge getting permission to work. You saw we were at night because the supervisor went home and we had our way with his parking lot. We're planning to do it again in another place where there's a little place in the parking lot that's a little secluded, and so we're going to try that. But anyway, so you think this might work with your teenagers, huh?
Donna, if it's school district service, not rehab service, you can just work with the school custodian to put some cones out and block off some stuff in the parking lot.
And get borrow some shopping carts.
Well, I think you can probably get utility carts from the school custodian.
Utility carts, boom, 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 boom. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, there are those things, you know, the stuff that they cart the audiovisual materials around.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
It'll just take a little planning in advance. That's all. Finding the right site. And the other thing I would do was practice with the kids, making sure they actually knew how to manage and handle the carts, because they probably don't know.
You know,
and it might take a classroom aide, if the child is pushing the cart, to have a classroom aide ahead of the cart, just pulling it so they know what is straight ahead is.
Maybe, yeah.
Because
well, so even just knowing what a straight line, pushing something ahead in a straight line, that's a skill in itself, isn't it?
They may know to turn their body, but they don't necessarily know how to project it onto an object to turn an object.
I love it. All kinds of concepts they could develop, just getting ready for this concept.
All kinds of developmental skills. Oh, now I can go into a breakout room. You want me to go? I'll go to you.
If you, how much time is left on it? Tara, do we know how much time is left?
We're giving just a little bit more time because Sharon was still putting people in rooms, but we can see who's in what. And so it looks like they're just kind of still chatting, however.
All right. Well, whoever was speaking, why don't you decide? Do you want to go into a room with somebody already in there that they're discussing, or just stay out
And
here?
if so, room 29 and 30 only have one person in there, and 32. No, 29 and 30. They could use some folks. I don't know why.
Now they're going to be talking about children, I'm guessing, right?
They invited me in, but I couldn't get in. So I'll just stay here with you.
All right, why don't you stay here? Anybody else have ideas of how you could apply this? I love what already just came up. By the way, this is being recorded. The others are on their own. But so what other ideas to apply this, what you've learned to?
I think you could use a family driveway.
Okay, let's put that aside. We've talked about shopping carts and utility carts, and that's a fabulous idea. Any other the things we talked about with the teaching remotely that you might be able to apply? The APH program, maybe teaching concepts of we didn't really get into that exercise, did we? Having them learn to compare their warning time with their crossing time.
I liked very much, this is Catherine, and I work with adults, well, 18 to and up And I really liked the strategies for identifying where the cars were in the lane of traffic. And
Yes, yeah.
I thought that was just to be able to talk about, I thought that was a really useful strategy in terms of really being able to identify where's that car coming from? Is it coming from the right? Is it coming from the left? Yeah, so, you know, and the whole concept of most streets are symmetrical. So if you're hearing that, then it's, you know.
Yeah, cool.
I would definitely, yeah, that was great.
Anybody have ideas to expand? And I apologize, we didn't really get into the how to teach concepts of, and I'll do that when they come back, just real briefly, but how to teach concepts that they need for addressing uncontrolled crossings and doing it remotely.
All right, I am going to set that 1 minute and just one more minute. How about that?
Well, let's bring them back, because I just realized
all right, so we're going to give them that minute right now.
With our push to get this done quickly, we really skipped the major part of it, which was having
Their countdown is on.
Huh?
The countdown is on.
The countdown is on. Susan, when they come back, we didn't give you a chance to talk about learning to listen for cars, did we?
Yeah, but we have like 4 minutes with that. Okay, we can do that. Okay.
We don't have time to talk, do we? We don't have time to hear from them. What a shame. Okay, so what we're going to do instead of hearing from them is have you describe what we did with Anthony remotely with listening for cars. Okay.
Okay.
14 seconds. The countdown is going.
They're trickling in.
And we didn't do those poll questions either, but I figured we were just skipping them.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody is trickling in.
There's 67. How many words in here? There was 80 some.
Originally.
Well, we had a couple of rooms that they were assigned to or went in, but were not really joined in.
Okay, there's still a couple in the rooms, and I just realized we have like what 4 minutes that's left. And guys, I am so sorry. I would want you put into the chat what you would have shared, and then we can collect that chat and then share that with everybody. Meanwhile, we realized that in skipping the exercise part, we skipped the part where we talk about how remotely we were able to teach Anthony some very major things. And Susan, why don't you explain basically what we did with teaching him, how we realized there was a problem and what we did remotely.
We taught Anthony how to listen to approaching vehicles, and what we did both remotely and in person. So we started remotely, and Anthony would press the space bar key.
Excuse me, Susan, I'm sorry. We don't want to explain how it's done.
Okay.
We just noticed that when we took him out in person, he wasn't hearing the cars until long after we heard them. So then we went to remotely, and just, you don't have to explain the details of the pushing buttons and everything, but yeah.
So we started remotely, and remotely Anthony could not hear those cars on time. He was hearing those cars maybe 2, 3, 4 less seconds before it passed in front of him. And then we decided to go to in person to the street. And as we were standing at the street, he was not hearing the cars the same time Donna and I was hearing them. So we knew he needed more practice. We went back remotely. We did more practice until he was able even to tell us he heard the humming sound. And from there, we went back again to the street where he was able to hear those vehicles pass in front of him with enough warning time.
Thank you, Susan. Oh, go ahead.
Now, I was saying before when we started remotely, we thought maybe he was not pressing the space bar key on time. He had no headphones, or maybe the program was not working.
Exactly. And I know we have like 1 minute, and so I'm going to just give you guys an experience with that. So I want you to listen to this car and press your stopwatch when you think you hear a car coming. Now,
You didn't press it.
yeah, narration. Now, the thing is that this sounds really realistic with the headphones on. And so Anthony was not able to hear them, like Susan said. And what we had is ask him, when you heard that vehicle, when you finally did hear it, what was it that you were hearing? And listen for that again. This is so cool because in real life, you can't play back the thing that he missed, but here you can do it again. So I'm going to play it again and start your watch when you think you hear a vehicle. And it should be a little bit sooner because if you're listening for what you heard the first time, see if you can hear that a little bit sooner. And I apologize. I apologize to everybody. Let me turn her off. I apologize to everybody because I didn't set you up properly with stopwatches and whatnot. But the thing is that Anthony was able to listen to those vehicles again and again until we could hear them sooner and sooner. And we found that before we did it, he wasn't hearing them in real life. After Susan trained him remotely, he was able to hear the vehicles much earlier. So I just wanted to let you know that you can remotely teach your students to hear vehicles sooner. There's also a program to have them learn how to recognize how much warning they have of the vehicles and compare that to their crossing time. And we have run out of time, right, Tara?
I know, but it's always like that because you always have so much great information. We can never get through it all. So it just means you have to come back. That's just what that means. That's how we do. So we thank you.
I hope the chat is exploding with ideas that we can capture later.
And we want to make sure that everyone, I know that Sharon is checking the chat, but we also want to make sure that everyone has all the links that they need. One, the links that Donna mentioned, and then also your ACVREP link. Of course, you have great comments in here that this was nice and they were so happy that you came. And I am sharing the closing code right now. That's always a question, which is crossings. Of course, it's crossings. CROSSINGS, crossings. Now keep in mind, some folks that aren't usually on here may not know, but we have a prize that we give out every single time that we have our GVEST, and it will be 2 gift cards just like before. So we are going to start our raffle, and then after the raffle,
before we
do wait, we gotta take a picture. I'm so sorry. We do have to take a picture. Is that you, Carmen?
Yes.
Yes. So we also want everyone to share their screen or their video so that we can see your lovely faces, because we also like to take a picture. It's our little picture that we take of everyone.
Tara, unshare your screen.
Right.
Okay,
so we can
one
see everybody.
second.
And Tracy,
there we go.
Help me?
Do you want me to do it instead?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go for it.
I mean,
all right, everybody smile.
That's right. Fix your hair. Let everybody fix their hair and their glasses.
I have
you know
3
how we do.
screens.
Hold on. Let me get it together.
Yeah, give it a
Put your
second.
little
I have
lipstick
3
on.
screens, so just keep smiling as I take the screenshots. I'll let you know when all 3 are done, okay?
Here we
all
go.
right, is everybody ready? All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm doing the second screen. 1, 2, 3. Smile. All right, and I'm gonna take one of the third screen, even though it's all names, just so we know who
Anthony, I'll draw your picture.
All right, do you want me to pull up the prize wheel?
I have it.
Oh, I thought I did it.
No. That was me. I had it up. 1 second. And you put it in the new.
Yeah, I have it up on my browser. So if you just let me share my screen really quick, I can pull it up.
Okey dokes.
Okay. Go over here to where, hold on. Let me get, I hate it when the thing gets in the way, guys. Okay. There we go. All right. All right. 1, 2, 3. We're doing 2, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Here's the first one.
We're not hearing your sound, so we have to give a tick, 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 tick.
Oh, sorry. Hold
And
on.
do you want to stop recording?
There we go. I think it's because of my AirPods. All right. So